Welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. Here are the top 10 real people who were cursed by witches. Kicking off the list at number 10, Mother Shipton. Yeah, we're going medieval for this list. I mean, obviously. From the 1400s to the 1700s alone, there were around 50,000 individuals who were all found guilty of witchcraft. Isn't that insane? And we all know what that meant. That was a one-way trip to the guillotine. But how many of these were actual witches? I mean, really? They probably just knew bed mass, realistically. That's probably the case for most of these. We'll start with a woman named Mother Shipton, aka Ursula Southiel. She was a clairvoyant from the 16th century, England's greatest, if that. Her mother, as well, was widely known to be a witch. It's always a fun little fact, always runs in the family. But Ursula, she was so good at her job, she was often compared to Nostradamus. Apparently, she predicted the Great Fire of London, and also the execution of Mary Queen of Scots, and also the internet. Yeah, she straight up called the World Wide Web. In the 16th century, she predicted around the world that one day thoughts shall fly in the twinkling of an eye. Yeah, cut to today, it's just people tweeting about their cat's foot fungus. We're like, yeah, she's not wrong. Mother Shipton had to start off with this list because she actually passed away a peaceful death. Yeah, not too bad. We'll start off nice and slow. She wasn't hunted down by any mobs. She was actually buried on unholy grounds in 1561. Was she inherently cursed? Did her mother pass on a gift? We'll never know. Most likely though, for sure. That's some pretty... She called the internet. Like that's crazy. Number 9, Agnes Sampson. Turning the clocks forward now, around 30 years after Mother Shipton. The general public wasn't always easy when it came to clairvoyance, obviously, or gifted individuals. So around 1590, when King James VI was in ruling over Scotland, this was an important time because the lovely Anne of Denmark, Norway, his wife, she was very much opposed to all this dark magic happening around her. Yeah, you always have that one friend who doesn't watch scary movies or doesn't like to talk about Ouija boards. I get it. Yeah, keep that bad juju out of the house, away from the royal family. For sure, I get it. During one commute back to Scotland, this is when it all started. The couple barely made it through fierce storms, so King James VI, he was now convinced that the storms were the outcome of black magic. Yeah, they were just talking and they were afraid. That entire commute, now they believe that witches were to blame. The North Berwick area saw 70 convicted witches after that, all because of one storm. Yeah, including one Agnes Sampson. Yeah, the charges sound pretty wild. The king and queen all believed that these witches attended a coven on Halloween night before their commute. Agnes denied all these charges, obviously, but it didn't matter. Of course it didn't matter. She was held a prisoner until she had to confess. That's when she finally met her fate. Her nonsensical fate. Number 8, Malin Matsdotter. It's one thing for a town to turn against you out of the blue because they're spooked, but imagine family. Yeah, that's horrible. That's exactly what happened to Malin Matsdotter. She was a Swedish widow and her own daughter told everybody in town that her mother was a witch. Yeah, that's brutal. She was the last victim of the Great Swedish Witch Hunt in 1676, also known as the Great Noise. So she was the last one ever, which is a good sign. Malin goes down in history because 1, it was thankfully one of the last ever executions. And 2, she never admitted once. She didn't cry out in pain the entire time. She didn't beg for forgiveness all during this awful punishment. She said it was all hogwash and she stood by it. Her daughter was actually later found guilty of perjury, so she too met a similar fate. Yeah, goes around, comes around. That's pretty horrible. Number 7, Merga Bien. This German heiress from the 17th century already had a rough go when it came to finding love. Yeah, she was now on her 3rd husband when all of this horribleness around her began to unfold. 17th century Germany. Out of the blue, Prince Abbot Balthasar von Dürnbach ordered a witch hunt, and this one lasted from 1602 to 1605. Yeah, just a bunch of grown adults walking around to see if anybody mentions magic or coincidences, and then they're like, all right, time to go punish you until you confess. Like, this is so stupid when you look back now. When Merga had literally just returned to the city right after an argument with her husband's friends, the town was already spooked because of this witch hunt, and then Miss Merga arrives and they think, this lady's on her 3rd marriage. After 14 years, they still haven't conceived, therefore, she must be a witch. Yeah, for sure a witch, let's do it. And then in 1603, she met her fate as well, all because of some spooked civilians and a lousy order sent from a lousy prince. Number 6, Bridget Bishop. In 1692, 500 people lost their lives due to smallpox. This happened right after Europeans brought the disease to North America, and in result, you would get covered in these sores, these pimple-like bubbles. It was really awful. History is gross. So rather than recognize the situation as symptoms from a disease, the fine people of Salem thought, oh, they're probably just witches. The small Massachusetts village began this wave of hysteria with two young women, Betty Paris and Abigail Williams. They started to show signs of said disease. They were convulsing, acting strange. Obviously, they were extremely ill. And so the village doctor, William Griggs, just said that they were bewitched. He was like, ah, yes, cursed. Like, what? No. This guy was around today, the whole operation would have been screwed. Then other villagers slowly started to show similar symptoms because, well, you know, science, that's how that works. And today, we now have another idea of what may have caused all that mass hysteria this entire time. But I'll save that for number 1. But at this time, they believed the first witch to start this entire Salem witch hunt was Bridget Bishop. Yeah, the OG Salem witch. Over the next few months, around 150 more were convicted, all meeting their horrible similar fate on Gallows Hill. Maybe it was Bridget Bishop, but again, there's another theory, but we're almost there. It's makes a little more sense than witchcraft, I'd say. Number 5, Meowing Nuns. If I'm not going to talk about this now, then I'm not sure when I'll ever get the chance to again. This is so funny. This is so dumb. Back in the Middle Ages, a group of nuns were doing their covent nun witch thing. You know, dark magic, they were rebels. This was an odd thing in the Middle Ages because these nuns would have meowing sessions. Yeah, this French covent, this large, might I add, covent, many of nuns would gather in groups and they would spend hours meowing all at the same time. Or try to at least, which was even more annoying. It annoyed nearby civilians so much that soldiers had to eventually come by and just beg them to stop. Look, for most of these cases, most likely not witchcraft. This one here, I think this actually was a curse, or else this is the greatest prank in history. Not sure what's going on here. Either way, we gotta talk about it. Nice number 5, nice halfway point here, you know? Number 4, Macbeth Curse. Oh boy, all you theater kids out there, you're gonna skip this one. You're like, nope, can't talk about this one, can't hear it, bada. I'm doing Grease at the end of this year. I can't watch this. This is bad juju. This is bad play juju. There's a few things you can't say to an actor before a show. Oddly enough, good luck is one of them. You're supposed to say, break a leg. Hey, break a leg. Great. You know? Hey, good luck. Oh, sorry. Oops. No. The one thing you can't say is Macbeth. Yeah, don't say that to an actor at any point ever in life. Just don't even talk about it. The legend goes back to 1606, the time of the play's first ever performance. The actor playing Lady Macbeth died right before the show, so Shakespeare himself had to play the part. Apparently a coven of witches, always a coven of witches, eh? Apparently a coven of witches cursed the show before. Since then, there's been tales of real daggers being used accidentally in the show instead of props, resulting in, what's happening, stop. The Astor Place riot in New York back in 1849, okay. This was caused by rival actors, the American, Edwin Forrest, and English, William Charles Macready. Many people lost their lives at this point, over 100 were injured. And both actors just happened to be in different productions playing Macbeth. We got a new Scooby-Doo Ghoster Coaster that we're trying out. It's good. There's countless amounts of stories recalling botched performances of the play, but what do you think? Is this the case of being in your own head, or is the Macbeth curse real? Is this a real curse brought on by real witches? It's so scary. One time I said Macbeth before a show in grade 11. I was doing Amadeus. Halfway through I realized I wasn't wearing shoes in a scene. Yeah, I forgot shoes during a quick change, so maybe I was part of that curse for a hot minute. Those pesky covens of witches. Forgot my shoes because those witches. Number 3, animal witches. Cover your pet's ears for this one. I don't want them getting any ideas at all, especially bunnies, bunnicula. We don't like those. One of the craziest things about looking back to these Salem witch trials or any of these witch trials has to be that animals were also found guilty of witchcraft. I am dead serious. They would accuse animals of witchcraft, wizardry. Yeah, no better sous chef than a golden retriever. And we'll just scoop this up. To be fair, Air Bud played like 9 different sports in this movie, so I don't completely disagree. But cats? No way. On the official list of victims from the Salem witch trials, 2 cats were accused, as well as 2 dogs. Nice and even. These villagers, their mindset was that if their pet was behaving strangely, it must mean that they're working with witches in the middle of the night. That's why they're tired and acting odd. I mean, why else, right? Villagers believed that witches traveled at night, not by broom, but by riding on the back of your furry friend. Yeah, it wasn't just dogs either. They thought witches rode cows, pigs, wolves, dogs, even turtles. Turtles? Imagine a witch riding a turtle. She'd be so late to the cauldron cook-off. Or like squirrels, like they get around fast if they were on squirrels. Turtles, they would just be like, while other witches are flying above them, they're like, hang on, I'll be there in a sec. Number 2, rye bread or witch's curse. When we talk about these medieval witch hunts, we often ask, why did people actually do this? Why did they believe this at the time? Were we this dumb? Why were so many people okay with this? We asked this obviously in other worse, horrible situations, but we're talking about witchcraft right now. Well, recently we got some clues. In 1976, researcher Linda Caporial discovered that these villages were not cursed. There were no witches walking around just cursing folks on brooms or hairy otters, but perhaps it was the spread of rye disease. Yeah, ergotism forms in rye whenever it's a harsh winter and then immediately a damp spring, so the rye grows in this purple and black fungus, and then back then people didn't know better. They ate everything. They thought the color change was just overexposure to the sun, so they ate it. Blah. Then they got sick, and then they acted weird and were obviously in horrible conditions. Then they got accused of witchcraft because they were, they looked odd. What a horrible week. It's referred to now as St. Anthony's fire. You convulse, you experience delusions. It feels like there's bugs under your skin. You even get gangrene sometimes. It's horrible. This is where illicit substances come from nowadays, from lysergic acid. But these doctors didn't know that back then, did they? No, everyone thought they were all just cursed by black magic. No, they just needed help. Oddly enough, in May 1693, just a year later, the Salem witch trials abruptly stopped. Did they get every witch, or did Salem just run out of contaminated grain? You be the judge. And finally, number 1, Giles Corey. Out of the 27 people who had their lives taken away from them during the 1692 trials, 19 were hanged, 7 passed away in prison while serving their sentence, and the last victim was Giles Corey. We had to end on this brave man right here. He refused to plead either innocent or guilty, and the law at the time states that you can't be tried otherwise. So what they did next was horrible, as you could have guessed. They laid a board on top of the 81-year-old man, and then over the course of 2 days, boulders were slowly added, making the weight more and more unbearable. They were hoping Giles would admit something, either of both ways, but every time they asked him anything, Giles responded with more weight. How brave is that? How badass is that? After 2 days of this punishment, Corey passed away still in full possession of his estate, which went to his sons-in-law. If he had vowed innocence or guilt, the government would have taken that away from him, so he sadly did the best thing he could, and it did him best long term. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I've been your host, Taylor McWaters, and we'll see you next time for some more witches and wizards and witchcraft and curses. See ya. Then other villagers slowly started to show similar symptoms. Similar symptoms. Then other.
What about hairy otters?
Yo, you scared the out of me. I did not know you were there. That actually scared the shit out of me. I turned so quick. That scared the absolute shit out of me. Otters would be so scary. You know what else is scary? People appearing behind bushes. Damn, that was so funny.
Are you gonna comment on how good that was? Hairy otters?
Hairy otters is great. My heart's still pounding though, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Behind the bushes, yeah.
Yeah.